Ready? Everybody ready? Everybody ready? You ready?
Well,
I thought you were waiting. He told us to go ahead. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Elizabethton City Schools Board of Education October meeting. I'm sorry. We need to. Dr. May is on his way. He was delayed at the hospital, but he is en route. Told us to go ahead and get started. So he'll be joining us very soon. By the time Mr. Alexander usually reads all of his personnel changes, that ought to give him plenty of time. Mr. Alexander, if you could lead us in the pledge to the flag and a moment of silence.
Please stand. Please pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. Attention. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time for citizens to speak in accordance with Board Policy 1.404. Anyone wishing to speak should do so now. State your name and address. Seeing none, it's time to approve the consent and regular agendas. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. I would like to, as we're doing the any questions or comments, I would like to remove item number, agenda item number 11, which was to approve the Capital Project Committee's recommendation. The committee is going to be meeting Monday, and so there's nothing to approve since we don't have a recommendation. So if we can pull that. After the Monday meeting, I would like to have a called meeting sometime. That works for everyone.
A week from Monday, the 28th?
28th, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. So, no, next Monday, 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Isaacs. Anyone else have any questions or comments on the consent and regular agenda?
I do. I would like to hold up on our number 8, and hopefully when we could have a call meeting on that. There are 2 more bids to be considered, and as I say, if we could have a call meeting, give us time to finish looking through those bids. We still may go with the one that's currently in the book, but I would like for the board to have time to look through the other 2.
Which ones you said? You said 8?
8, and then as far as the curtains at T.A. Duggar, there's also a local person that does that type of work, and she estimated approximately at $9,000, and she looked at it today. She didn't have time to bring the bid in. And also J.C. Penney would be able to come out next week and give a quote on the curtains, trying to save us a little money if we could. So that would be 7 and 8, and if we could possibly have a call meeting on those 2 and do it either next week or either on the 28th, which would be before the 31st, I would really appreciate it.
Well, you're going to need to say that over again so that Dr. May, we'll give Dr. May a second to come in. You haven't missed much. We're just voting on the consent regular agenda.
Thank you.
I've requested that we remove item 11, which is the Capital Projects Committee recommendation. We'll give you a minute to get situated. Ms. Baker has been doing a little work on bids, and we just need for you to hear what's going on, and then we can all figure out what to do.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Ms. Baker, if you would talk about items, agenda items 7 and 8.
Okay, the reason that I checked on these because there was only 1 bid, and I know sometimes it's hard to find things. I also checked on 6 and found out there was only 1 manufacturer that did that made that particular item. And in some cases, the other schools that got them, they had donations from places. So 7 and 8 was able to find 2 people that would give 2 other bids. And according to our policy, it states that we're to have 3 bids. And I talked to 1 or 2 other people, and they said if you don't have 3, then you're supposed to not do it until you can get 3, or send it back or put it listed again. So that's why I did try to go ahead and get the other bids, which I was able to do, except from J.C. Penney. They wouldn't be able to get out until next week, but we have a local person that's capable of doing it. And again, we would vote on it. But at least we would have the 3 bids that we're supposed to have for the projects that we put on.
Well, the one thing that you're neglecting, you're talking about 3 bids, and we try to get 3 bids, but it says these bids shall be solicited by advertisement in a newspaper of general circulation in the district, except that said newspaper advertisement we waived in the event of an emergency. So here's what worries me, and we've talked about this before. Over and over again, it is so unfair to bring up something and hand it to us right before a meeting, because this is something that I don't know if school board members can call companies and ask them for bids. So you're putting us in a position where I'm uncomfortable. These bidders have already, been awarded possibly a contract, and I don't know if it's a conflict of interest that because what if you didn't call a company, you called somebody, if you didn't call somebody else? I mean, there's some issues that I'm a little uncomfortable with when you're calling companies and getting bids when everyone else is going through the process and procedures we have in place. And I don't know how to respond to this because you gave it to me 5 minutes ago, and Dr. May just walked in, Mr. Isaacs. I mean, none of us have had a chance to look at this. And
excuse me, this is why I'm asking you to put it on hold till then.
I know, but if you would have
till
a week or so ago.
Wait a minute, excuse me. I didn't know we had only 1 bid until I got our booklets last Thursday? Last Thursday. Okay, so I said over and over each time I come to the meeting, I said, I've emphasized the need of having 3 bids. We may go with the bid that's in our book right now. We may not. But in either case, we are to have 3 bids. So I said, okay. I said, since I'm fussing about these 3 bids, and I said, they're saying nobody responded. I said, let me see why they're not responding. I said, I'll call the procurement office in Nashville, which I did, and they faxed me a sheet back, and they listed these vendors. And I said, okay, I'll call them. It's not saying, no one should be committed to anything until the board votes on it.
Yes, but
no contract should be made until the board votes on it. So all I'm asking for is that we have time to look over it. We can have a call meeting or whatever's necessary, but at least we have time to look over these things, and we have the 3 bids that it requires for us to have.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a couple of comments?
Yes, please.
First of all, on number 7, I think it would be appropriate. There's information that Mrs. Wilson has, and certainly Mr. Little has, and I ask that they have an opportunity to come forward, and then the board can either table it or vote on it. As for number 8, I understand that Mrs. Perkins is going to have to run off some contracts and things of this nature. I can understand why that would be tabled until there's a workshop. But number 7 can be explained, and there's nothing insidious going on here, and there's no board policy that's being disregarded. So under those circumstances, I'd ask that the board still consider number 7, but table number 8. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me, and the policy number is, I believe it's 2.806. I think we have that laying in front of us. But again, we can read through it, and I think there's another policy also that refers to this. So thank you.
Mr. Trent, you talked about savings of the $10,000 that if we...
Yes. One thing, I would like to at least address that if we can keep that on there, because through TVA at the end of this month, a grant expires where we're going to get $10,000. I believe it's $10,200 and some dollars. At the end of the month, that'll go away, and that's went through a tech advisory panel and through a process down at the state. And I just hate to see us lose that money. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Okay. Well, hopefully, Mr. Trent, we can have a meeting on this before the 31st, but also I hope we haven't committed to train before looking at other vendors. And of course, we are supposed to take the best price and not necessarily the lowest price, but the best price. So that's why I'm asking for an extension on this, please. And thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we table it, these two bids, until it can be looked into a little bit more. And you could, if you choose to do so, put it on the meeting the 28th.
Is there a possibility that we can just leave them, let Mr. Little talk about the curtains, and then we can make a decision? If we want to postpone it, we can. I would like to give Mr. Trent an opportunity to talk about the savings on that. If we want to do that, we can, but I think there's some more information that we need to look at. So it's a possibility still out there to table it, but let's at least let everybody that's, have an opportunity to talk. If that would please the board, you guys can still table it if you want to, but I think there's some information that maybe we need to hear. And then, because I would really, really hate that if we couldn't get the called meeting in by the end of the month, that we lose that $10,000 just because. And, you guys can, I don't want to explain that to the taxpayers. So if you don't care, let's just keep it. We can talk about it for a minute. You don't have to vote on it. We can do whatever, but at least we give everybody the opportunity to have all the information. I would feel much better about that, if you don't mind. So.
There's a motion on the floor to table.
Okay. So how do we?
Let me clarify a few things. Basically, we've approved the consent regular agenda, and there's a motion to take these two items off of the regular agenda. Is that a motion, or is that a?
It was a motion.
We've had, right now we're just discussing it. So
I don't mind leaving them on there, and then when the time comes, is to open them up for discussion and discuss it and see what avenue we'll take. Maybe we do want to postpone it. I don't know. It's something maybe we need to discuss.
Okay.
And is that okay with everyone? I mean, I'd like to hear, some of the staff's what.
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get caught up, but I'm I guess I'm trying to figure out where we are in terms of that, and I apologize. My office ran over and I couldn't get here. But
we haven't voted on anything
tell
yet.
me, okay.
We had a
did-
motion and a second to approve the consent agenda,
Okay.
at which time Ms. Brewer opened it up for discussion to modify either one of those. She suggested removing regular agenda item number 11 because the Capital Projects Committee did not make a recommendation at the end of their second meeting, as we thought they might when this agenda was proposed.
Okay.
The next person who spoke was Ms. Baker, requesting that we remove regular agenda item 8, and then she proposed that we remove regular agenda item 7.
And I think I caught
At
it
which
from that. Okay. So we haven't approved the agenda yet.
You have not voted on approving
Okay.
the regular and consent agenda. No, sir. And then after we had gone through all of that, that's when Mrs. Armstrong made her motion after that.
Okay. Now I know why I'm confused. We have lots of modifications to the agenda. And if it's time to discuss it, I'm okay with removing 11, but I'm also okay with discussing any recommendations. There's no recommendations, so I don't know what there is to discuss. As far as 7 and 8 go, the item is to approve them. We can either vote it up or down, but we'll at least hear the discussion. I think in the past that's what we've done, is discuss things, and then if we're not ready to approve them, vote them down, and then, say the reason we voted them down was because we want to.
And that still leaves
what
the
we
door
need.
open
Leaves
to
the door open.
postpone if we so desire to do so.
Right.
I mean, it's
Not putting them on there means we
approve them or disapprove them. We just
don't approve them by a procedural method. So I'm okay to leave them on there, but I'm also, I guess I wanted to hear more. I saw what you handed me when I walked in, and I don't think we really can even discuss it outside of that unless we have it on there as an agenda item.
Yeah.
And it was on there for has to be on there for the public in at least, 7 days in advance?
The only reason I was asking the hold up on was to be able to read the material thoroughly before we make a decision. And then we could easily have a call meeting and vote on those two items before the 31st. But one of the board's major jobs is to be conservative with our funds and to spend them as wisely as possible. And as you know, it's not the first time I've had beef about not having 3 bids. And also, I like to have the background information in detail, which the one on train did have, but there was no 3 bids. And so in order to be with the rules, that's why I was suggesting that. So that's fine.
So where are we?
So are you asking, Ms. Baker, for us to proceed as Dr. May is suggesting and have this more in-depth discussion when we get to that item on the regular agenda? Because that would give you the opportunity at that time, if you chose to postpone it to next month, you could table it at that point, and we would still have some discussion tonight, since Mr. Little and Ms. Wilson are able to provide some discussion on agenda item number 7.
Okay, but like I said, you know, the board can vote whether to go on and discuss it or to hold it. So it's up to the majority. If y'all want to go ahead with the discussion, and of course it'd probably be 3-2 or 4-1 or whatever, rather than holding it and then hearing the discussion. So it's, but just state what you want to do.
Well, I'm okay with going ahead with the agenda as it is, and when we get to that point on the agenda, to hear what the staff and hear what everybody has to say, and then if we feel that it's necessary to table it or postpone it, then we can do so. That I'm okay with that.
It's just 11 days.
Okay.
You mentioned the 28th, but that doesn't necessarily, the board hasn't deliberated on what day you're going to have a call meeting. You do have the option, if you want to have more than one, obviously, you could. So if you chose to have one prior to the Capital Projects Committee meeting and have this as a separate item to be discussed at a call meeting, that could be the pleasure of the board as well. You don't have to combine them.
When does that contract expire with Train?
Well,
Without reading it, I've got 9 folders here, Ms. Armstrong. If I had known that you all wanted to look at these, I would have had them ready, but 5 minutes before the board meeting, I didn't have time to get them copied or read, so I can't answer your question.
Okay, excuse me, and I'm sorry for waiting, but like I said, I started on this the Friday after, and of course, Monday was a holiday. So in order for them to get back with me and to get the materials, which I just got one today, you know, and I think that's pretty good, personally. But in either case, I understand, and that's why I say, that's why I wanted to postpone it, so we could have those other.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that. It's just, if you'd had it before I left work today at 4 o'clock, I would have more than happily made the copies available for everybody.
I called a little late, so I'm sorry. But I did try to call you, and you'll probably see it on your machine back there.
So what do we do with the motion to table? Do we need to vote on that? What do we need to?
Yeah, we can.
I'm going to be
I'm
Robert.
lost on the parliamentary.
I know.
Usually I'm pretty good, but we've got 3 motions, and I think
Well, I think the
we're supposed to vote on each one.
Motion is to approve the consent regular agenda, and we have a second on that. Is that correct?
Yes, but I wanted to have something. I wanted to
Okay.
remove an item, and they wanted to remove 2 items. So that's where it's getting nice and.
We can leave it all on there and even discuss 11 when we get to that point. I can
Okay.
kind of
Well,
tell
just-
everybody where the committee stands
Okay.
as far as that goes.
That's good.
So are you all willing to withdraw your motions and then us
Yeah,
I would
discuss
love
at
to go
each
home
one?
At some point, and I thought this was going to be a quick meeting, and I jinxed us. I jinxed us.
I will be.
Okay, it will still be quick.
Oh,
It's not going to be a problem.
Sure. Yeah, we can hope.
Not
All right.
a problem.
All in favor of approve? Am I okay? Is there anything out there hanging that I've got to do something with?
Well, I think that the people who made the motions.
I will withdraw mine.
I'll withdraw mine.
Thank you. Okay.
Mrs. Armstrong, are you withdrawing your motion?
I was.
Are you withdrawing the motion that you made?
No, I'm gonna leave it.
All right, then you're going to have to vote on that.
All right, we'll vote.
Okay. So you want to table
Okay. Can I
7
call the
and,
vote?
yep, so you want to table 7 and 8?
I still make a motion that we table it for 10, 11 days and then bring it up at the 28th of October.
Carla, call the question, please.
Thank you.
Good luck. I need it.
I'm trying to figure out what
I'm
Are
sorry.
you, let me clarify, Ms. Armstrong, to make sure that I'm hearing what you're wanting to
Okay.
state. You are making the motion to table those 3 particular agenda items and then have them considered at a called meeting? Is that correct?
At the, yes, when is that meeting following?
You haven't
We-
scheduled a
we-
called
we-
meeting
we-
yet. That's
At
just
that
it.
meeting. whenever
So you
it's-
want these tabled and then those be placed on the called meeting agenda whenever that is scheduled?
that is
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Would you call the roll? I think that's the only way to know how this is going to play itself out. And the item is to remove, the vote
Those
is to
3.
remove the 3. Okay.
Mrs. Armstrong?
Are we still on tabling?
We are voting on your motion. Yes,
I
ma'am.
vote for my motion.
And how did you vote?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. How did you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacs?
No.
Dr. May?
No.
Ms. Boer?
No. All right.
So that motion failed.
I make a motion that we approve the consent regular agenda as it's written.
I second the motion.
And are we going to do a voice vote on that, or are we going to do a roll call vote on that, Ms. Boer?
Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on that as well.
Okay. Mrs. Armstrong?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacs?
Yes.
Dr. May?
Yes.
Ms. Boer?
Yes.
That passes.
Mr. Alexander, Superintendent report.
Now, prior to the personnel update, there are good things happening in our system, and I'd like to thank the board members for attending the TSBA district meeting, as well as the EHS administrators who helped facilitate that, and the district administrators. I also would like to thank the musically talented individuals, many of whom were almost hired away at that point because their presentation was so good. And so we appreciate everybody who made that district meeting happen. Also, we're very excited about the $5 million amount for capital improvements. Many meetings later, and where we are is becoming clearer in where we're going. And looking back 6 years, folks, we've come a good, positive way. And since good things are currently going on here, we're looking forward and out back. So with that in mind, moving on to the update of personnel. First of all, Sarah Penley, interim teacher at Harold McCormick, effective 9/23. Kimberly Meredith, Eastside Lunchroom Monitor, effective 9/30. Chelsea Bear, lifeguard in the Community Improvement Program, effective 9/23. Tina Street, EHS part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 10/7. Whitney Birchfield, ELC part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 10/7. Lindsay Norris, T.A. Duggar assistant girls basketball coach, effective 10/7. Mariah Petrowski, T.A. Duggar assistant girls basketball coach, effective 10/7. Kelly Stanberry, Howard McCormick part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 10/8. Kayla Story, Eastside part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 10/14. On the separate page, you have other new hires. Misty Taylor, substitute cook, effective 10/17. Amber Hughes, ESP child care worker, effective 10/28. Victoria Nanny, ESP child care worker, effective 10/28. Elvira Noble, substitute ESP child care worker, effective 10/28. Seth Wallingford, substitute ESP child care worker, effective 10/28. Shannon Clark, interim Westside guidance counselor, effective 10/28. Moving on to resignations. Johnny Burleson, EHS Assistant Baseball Coach, effective 9/18. Madison Kine, EHS Assistant to the Teacher, effective 9/30. Brandon Nave, EHS Assistant Softball Coach, effective 10/3. Ashley Bailey, ESP Child Care Worker, effective 10/11. Dorothea Sullivan, Howard McCormick Assistant to the Teacher, effective 10/14. Ashley Seahorn, T.A. Duggar Teacher, effective 12/18. Now to transfers, Natasha Seipert from Eastside Office-Based Teacher Assistant to Eastside 4th Grade Assistant to the Teacher, effective 9/5. Jill Buckles, from Eastside 4th Grade Assistant to the Teacher to Eastside Office-Based Teacher Assistant, effective 9/5. Brenda Bynum, from EHS Assistant to the Teacher to Early Learning Center Assistant to the Teacher, effective 9/23. Leave of absence, Jimmy Eggers, EHS Cook, 9/23/13 to 1/15/14. Mary Pierce, EHS Teacher, from 9/23 to 9/27. Dan Mills, EHS Teacher, from 10/21 to 11/8. Laura Beth Fair, Westside Teacher, from 11/4 to 12/18/13. Suspension, Arnold Thomas, EHS Teacher Assistant, from 10/1 to 10/7. Substitute Teacher, Ashley Sidebottom, effective 9/23. Chelsea Taylor, effective 9/27. Eli Cash, effective 9/27. One other suspension without pay, Deborah White, T.A. Duggar Teacher, from 10/14 to 10/16. Madam Chairman, that is the update.
Thank you. Somebody have any?
Yes, can I ask a question on that, on the meeting? What time is that the committee plans to meet on?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Okay, and is there, would there be an opportunity for Matt Smith? You remember he did the presentation. You were here, I think, about building stadiums and.
They've never called us back. That's the thing. We were waiting for them to get back with us. We never heard back. Mr. Van Huss, Mr. Smith, the gentleman, Ms. Armstrong was asking about him.
The mayor made initial contact with that gentleman. The mayor made contact with Matt Smith, and once the bond went through, the mayor tried several times to contact Mr. Smith, and he never returned any of his calls. So that's all I can tell you from my standpoint. You'd probably have to talk to the mayor for more details, but I've talked to him about that. He's equally frustrated that he's not gotten back in touch with us. So I want to assure the board and everyone else and the public that we did not do anything to try to run Matt Smith off, as what I've heard some people say. That's certainly not true. For whatever reason, you'll have to talk to him about why he's not gotten back in touch with us.
Would there be an opportunity, if he does contact you, for him to do some presenting at the committee meeting, or is that just a dead deal?
I wouldn't want to speak for the committee. I wouldn't know why Matt Smith, why he would be interested at this point in time if he's had all this time and not, he's not responded to the mayor. That's certainly not, anything to do with us. So I can't speak to that.
Well, that is so weird, because I picked up my phone the other morning. I thought, well, I'm going to try to call that man. And I did on his cell phone. He picked it right up. So I did talk with him a little bit, but there wasn't really much I could tell him because there's been no decisions that I'm aware of from the committee. Very, very nice young man. And he said, well, he really was very busy. Evidently, they're very good at building stadiums. But he was so much cheaper. And I thought, well, that's okay if you don't want whatever. But I thought,
if it were my decision, it'd be much easier, but it's not my decision. That's the board and the committee's decision on how to move forward. So that's not my decision.
Thank you for giving us some information on him, though. Appreciate that.
So you're not going to come?
Well, as far as the committee goes, I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
The committee is still trying to gather.
Busy young man.
And I figured that's the reason I kind of wanted to leave 11 on there, so we can kind of give an update where the committee is, and I'll be glad to discuss just when we get to that item on the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can talk to it since it's still there, and, yeah.
One other question I had was, I was looking at, I always study the budget. I am really good at doing that. The only thing I'm really good at. And I can't find where they put the donations for the stadium. Where is that? It's not in any of the funds for the city schools, is it? Who keeps up with that?
A separate account has been set aside. I think most of the donations recently were from a memorial for Jesse Strickland and things of this nature. It would total approximately $500 at this point, 25 there, 100 there, whatever. I haven't even written the thank you notes for that yet. It's in a separate account for donations. Yes, Ms. Wilson? Okay.
What did she say?
She said September 30th, there were no donations at that time. Those have come since then.
Mhm.
So that's why you haven't seen it in the report, is because they were not made at that point.
Okay, what about those that have been made before that point?
Are you talking about the
Yeah.
foundation for
Yeah.
the going all the way back to the turf? Are we going to talk about that now?
Now, can we
No,
talk about it?
No, I don't want to talk about it now. I'm not prepared on that one. I just didn't know where to look if I wanted to find how much money there was.
That might be, just call Miss Wilson and ask her, and if she doesn't know, we can find out for you.
But would you? I would appreciate
Or, yeah,
that.
or, yes, I will
Yes,
do that.
please.
Okay, so are we ready to move on? All right, on to the regular agenda. First item is to approve awarding of bid number ECSS FY 2013-2014-01 for the purchase of one ambulance simulator to Rescue Safety Products in the amount of $24,774. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Colbert, would you come forward, please?
Thank you for letting me come up here and try to explain what I can. And again, I'm new to the high school as a CTE director, but best I can understand where the enrollment is going up at the high school, CTE programs are getting full, and we added a second teacher last year to the health science career cluster. CTE is broken up into 16 different career clusters. Marcy Harden's been there for 6 years. Gina Johnson came on board last year. Patty Simley wrote a reserve grant last year that was declined, didn't get it, but we've been trying to get this simulator for at least a year now, and we're asking for your help. CTE department can help fit it with all the goodies that go in it. But as far as the actual simulator, as you can see, it is a fairly expensive item. I was unfamiliar a little bit with the bid process, but I went to Ms. Wilson long ago, who I think we would all agree does a great job as our finance director. She walked me through the process of how we were going to collect the bids and so forth, and we looked as far as we can to get as many bids as we could. But as you can see, and it's already been pointed out, we only had the one bid. But this simulator would be great to help Ms. Johnson. I wrote down the name of some of the courses she teaches as far as health science goes, therapeutic clinical services, a EMS class, and medical therapeutics. So those are the things that she is doing, and this would greatly not only help Ms. Johnson, it would go in Ms. Johnson's room, it would also help Ms. Harden in the classes that she teaches. So it would actually help all of our students, because again, we have 2 teachers in the health science curriculum with the CTE department at the high school. The program is growing. With the EMT stuff is concerned, there is something I'm finding out as a CTE director. We even have to track non-traditional students, so any male going into one of these traditionally health occupation type classes would even be a good thing. And as you have seen, sadly, from all of us having experience with different EMT type services, a lot of the guys are involved with that, so we even think this would help some with that. So there's at least some information, but I'll gladly answer any other question you may have.
Well, I have something to add to that, and there's a Miss Kim Berry that is teaching at one of the colleges, and also I think she works with the WINGS program, and I talked with her. She was very complimentary of our health program at the high school and the job that they were doing. And she told me that this is the only company that makes this machine.
To our knowledge, yes.
Yes. But she said some of the other local schools that their ambulance department had donated these machines to them, but some of them had to buy them like we are.
Yes.
But she asked me, had we checked with our ambulance department? I told her, no, we had not. And I said, I don't know whether or not they would donate it, but she was even familiar about the grant that we attempted to get, and she said it's very competitive. So, again, you know, all I'm saying is when we do list our bids in the book, if we could state why, like she could have put on only company that makes this or something like that. But still, it was good information to find out. And she said periodically, if we need various things, to check with our local hospitals and ambulance departments to see if they're donated, because she said several of the schools did not have to purchase, and that they even bought the equipment out of those ambulances when they, and put it in the high schools, and they didn't have to worry about paying for labor or anything like that. So I just wanted to add that and let you know that I do appreciate what you're doing, but you know, according to us, we're supposed to look for 3. If we don't have 3, we're supposed to find out why. And I figured that's part of our job. So thank you.
Okay.
The question that I have is, I'm not familiar with this simulator. Don't know the actual size of it. I mean, do we have a place to house it? And is it something that is stationary, or is it something you move? I'm not.
This will be stationary. I called Mr. Trent before we ever even started on the bid process to make sure that we would have room to put it, and et cetera. And in Ms. Johnson's classroom, we've already measured and figured out where it would go. And it is the back part of an ambulance. It is that part. So the schools that had it donated had to take it somewhere to get the cab part of the truck cut off and get everything removed out of it and done different things. The way we are wanting to purchase it, it would be kind of a turnkey thing. They're going to come in and build it for us. Disadvantage is when you have a teacher and a couple of students in there, you can't see. So part of this, of course, we've already talked to Mr. Trent. We're going to have cameras set up in there, so the students that are not inside the simulator seeing what is going on will be able to see what is taking place in the smart board in the classroom. So all the students will be able to see whatever is going on. But yes, we did talk with Mr. Trent before we ever started the bid.
Sounds very interesting. Sounds like it would be beneficial for the kids. I think it would be a good learning tool for, and maybe some hands-on experience of the way it really is. It sounds kind of neat.
Is there an opportunity on the resale market at all after its use? Have you explored that?
No, sorry.
Residual values?
I've not.
Just curious if we had thought through that. I don't think, from what I've researched, it's not been out long enough to have a lot of them sitting around to be resold. But I would imagine it would have a residual value of about 50% of it in about 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years. So should it not work out, it's not the full price that we lose. There's a school somewhere that would probably want it if it didn't work for us. I think it's very good. I think it will be something that's ongoing. One of the things that has grown is CTE, and you know, last year we had a lot of good things happening there. It's also where the need is, and our community is in a lot of the stuff that's happening in CTE. For when kids graduate, that's a lot of times roles they can go right into working in. And so I think it's something that our community needs us to support. But I was just curious about
I've not checked into that. No.
Simulators, things of that nature.
And maybe we can let our local people know that if they have things that we are in need and would be willing to accept whatever they may have. So I did let some of the ones I talked to know that.
Okay.
All right, we ready to vote? Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Looking forward to seeing this. Item on the floor is to approve awarding of bid number ECSS FY 2013-2014-01 for the purchase of one ambulance simulator to rescue safety products in the amount of $24,774. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item. Approve awarding of bid number ECSS FY 2013-2014-02 for the purchase of auditorium curtains for T.A. Duggar Junior High School to Kindle Stage Curtains in the amount of $16,020. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I say probably 2 people need to provide some information. Mr. Little first and Mrs. Wilson second on this, so we can get a clear view of what has transpired bid-wise.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, I guess should speak to the specifics of the bid process and that, but I know for at least 3 people on the board for 2 years we've been requesting funding for curtains at T.A. Duggar. And in that time, I have learned a great deal about curtains, and these are just not curtains. They're not drapes. This is an industrial cloth. It's a heavy-duty 26-inch velour polyester that you just don't find. And so we've done the whole process of, and T.A. Duggar is a unique place because not only do you have those curtains and the valances, if we were going to do it, we wanted to do it correctly and have a monogram of our school logo, not T.A. Duggar, not a toughie, but something that reflected the arts and humanities embroidered into the valance. So these are not things that can just be easily done. I learned that you had to measure all the windows individually because a 70-year-old building, they can be 1 inch out. The valances must be proportionate to the height and width of the windows. And so it required extensive measuring and everything for anyone to even make a bid on it. And so after we had gone through that process with the cyclorama setting, the window settings, options, nobody could install it. Nobody could come near the installation of this because to get to the valances and all that, you have to take auditorium chairs out to install scaffolding to get to the valances. This is not about purchasing curtains. This is about the whole pulley system that operates the curtains. If you're going to get brand new curtains, it just did not make sense to not look at the pulleys that would open them and the whole situation and revolving around that. And so to speak to reference of a bid that was put today, I was there at T.A. Duggar at 10 after 4 when an individual approached me, an assistant principal in my office, and said they were called at 4 o'clock to come to T.A. Duggar and get a bid for auditorium curtains. The truth of the matter is that I just kind of looked at them and thought, you're going to do this. She said, I need to have it by 6. And I thought, okay, well, let's just go down here and look at this. I'll gladly take you down to our auditorium. And immediately, as they began to look around, the truth is that person told me we should get the fire department to get the curtains down to make an actual bid. And I thought, take the curtains down. And that didn't even have to do with the installation pulleys. And that same individual told me it would take at least 16 hours on a Saturday or sometime for them to even begin to think about making a bid on that. And that was where I left them at about 4:20, somewhere in there. So to my knowledge, it was put in the paper, the bid process was out there, everything was handled correctly, but I was naive to it. When I started into it, this is not typical curtains, in no way. And there's only a few people around that can provide a crew that can come up there and do it, change it, pull up chairs, and and move out and have it done. So that's what I know on my end of it, and what occurred today about allegedly another bid. And so I'll let Ms.
Let me ask you a quick question. Now, is this the stage curtains as well as window curtains?
Yes.
Okay, so it's everything.
It's all the curtains in the room.
In the auditorium.
It's the background curtains that come around the back. It's the valance at the top. It involves 4 curtains that separate the lighting. Okay. It's the valances on 9 windows that range from 8 feet to 15 feet 4 inches.
So it's the whole auditorium.
It's the whole auditorium, because we couldn't just replace the curtains on the stage and leave those rather shabby ones elsewhere.
Okay, I appreciate that, but see, what we received, it did not have all of that information, that it was all of the curtains. We just received...
No, it does. It says it on there. It
right,
says...
Where does it? It says bids were advertised and solicited for auditorium curtains for T.A. Duggar. But it didn't say, to me, I did not get this out of the side when I'm just thinking it was probably just a stage. So, but that's why I say another thing, when we do list it, we should have, you know, a good description of exactly what all it entails. Now, the reason I called, like I said, I got this last Thursday afternoon, and according to everything I've read, it says 3 bids. We don't have to go with what she's suggesting because you know this. You can share this with us. But 2, in getting our information, this is another reason that we should have the 3 bids, because it makes it very clear specifically what you need and how you need it. I did not think about that, but see, if it had been written behind here or another sheet attached, telling why it was going to be so costly or whatever. But the other person could not fit it in her schedule this week, which is, and J.C. Penney's, they do custom-made stuff. And so that was the other person that was wanting to give a bid. Now, personally, I read the paper, but a lot of things I don't see in it. And, of course, you know, I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect. I'm nowhere near it. But I do want to go by, and I do want 3 bids. We don't have to go by that bid. You know, we're not saying we're going to do it that way. But this is one of the reasons that you have 3 bids and why you have discussions. This is what we're here for. So thank you very much, Mr. Little, and I do appreciate it.
Mr. Little, I want to thank you. I know that all the years that I was at T.A. Duggar, and I know that one of the things you've wanted since you've been there was for the auditorium. Everybody in town uses the auditorium. I know that several times we had looked at possibly using different funds, like being separate funds and stuff for it, but there was always another need for that. Having been on that stage, and honestly, I'd be afraid to take some of the curtains down. I'm afraid you'd never get them back up if they'd dry rot, that if we took them down, something terrible is going to happen. But it's an elaborate system. I am thrilled to death that you guys are doing this. I think it's really exciting, and it's going to be something I think the whole town's going to benefit from. So I'm happy that it's finally we're getting an opportunity to do
Well, I
this.
appreciate the board consider. In many ways, it's a focal point of Elizabethton City Schools because so many people use that auditorium throughout the city and the county. It's been used this weekend, and by people that are, you know, and that's what they see. And I think it deserves more.
Will the installation be done on a weekend or something when the kids are out of school, or like a break or something? Or
I think if done with the correct crew and the people, I think it could be done in a matter of 2 or 3 days. And I think that could work around our auditorium schedule. When the children are released into the general classes, I think they'd go from 8 to 3.
The pulley system that you're describing, is that a motorized, and is it pulled? It's a manual, so you're already kind of on the lower budget, probably.
Right. Yes, we're on the
I mean, you kind of. Did you look at some that were electronic?
No. When I saw that, I was scared. You know, I tried to find that out. I don't know how long they've been up, but I know they're in a state. They're in a serious state.
Mr. Little, at one time, one of the employees actually cut the bottom off those and left a fringe on the bottom of that. So
is there a safety issue as they're aging with falling and injury?
I would think so, particularly with the pulleys. The way that they're hooked up there, I mean, I have no idea how much one of those, just a section would weigh. And as much as they're used, and yes, they have if you're staged right, as Mr. Alexander, it's just like what I'd cut off my daughter's pants. Just, it does not look well at all.
This person here that is the bidder here, have they actually physically came and looked at the project, or are they doing it all correspondence?
No, we had pictures that were accessible for anyone where they could see, and openings were measured. You can't measure the curtain. You have to measure the openings because it may be, as anybody that's ever done any type of renovation, it might not be square. You can't measure a curtain. You have to measure the opening and make the curtain fit the opening.
I guess I asked that because when they get here, I hope they don't run into something that they're not aware of that could be a potential problem for them. And I don't know if the price includes any problems that they run into, or could there be?
I think they're pretty straightforward. I think the situation is do you have the crew and to get there and move things to be able to access high windows, high things of that nature.
It could have been, remember not a few years back, but several years back, they redid parts of the auditorium, put up the new light fixtures. I don't know.
Dr. Strickland did that. That was during her tenure as superintendent. And Ms. Brewer, if you would allow me, I'd like to also remind the board as well as the general public that the items that were submitted for the bid opening, those come under the open records law. And Ms. Wilson is more than willing to make that available to anyone who would like to see that and review it at any point in time during our normal business hours.
Thank you. Those gold things are going out of there in the back, but they really look ragged.
I was glad to see this on there, but like I said, I wanted to make sure that we had exhausted all of our people that could possibly look at doing this. And of course, JCPenney's is known for their custom draperies and that type of thing. So if you don't mind, and she's able to get there, I still would like for her to look at it. And, you know, at least we'd have 3 bids here. But in any case, that's what we do. We choose the best one and the one that can do the work the most efficiently.
JCPenney may be able to make them, but I don't think they can install them.
Okay, that's fine.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a question? Ms. Wilson, was, ma'am, you don't have to get up there, but the question I would ask is, was board policy followed, and was it properly advertised? Is what I want.
These bids were advertised in the Johnson City Press and the Elizabethton Star on September the 8th. In those bids, in the advertisement, it says that you need to call the central office or come by to obtain the bid document. The bid document's 13 pages of specifications, including the logo to go in the center. So everything was in here, all the different types of curtains that are needed, everything. To get that information, you simply come by here or call to get the bid document, and it will be sent to you. That was advertised. It also, in the advertisement, it said that sealed bids would be received until 2 p.m. on October the 7th. And at that time, bids were closed and they were opened. The bid document also says that then the bid will be awarded at the next meeting of the Board of Education. So if this bid is not awarded tonight, it will need to be rejected and the whole bid process started over and sealed bids obtained once again. Okay, thank you.
All right. But by our bylaws, it says, and our policy rather, it says 3 bids.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Mr. Bennett tomorrow, and I'm going to get him, I'm going to talk to all these things, and I will, whatever he sends as an email, I will check on what to do when we don't get 3 bids, and I will ask him that specifically tomorrow. Yes.
Can I ask a question? You're referring, I believe, to board policy 2.806, which is bids and quotations, lines 6, 7, and 8. All purchases of 300 but less than 10,000 may be made in the open market without newspaper notice, but shall, whenever possible, be based on at least 3 bids. Is that
yes, sir.
What you're talking about? And up at the top, it just says, and that was of those 300 to 10,000, says that they should be based on. Then it says all those that are above 10,000, including those of individual schools, shall be based on competitive bids. These bids shall be solicited by advertisement in the paper of general circulation in the district, except that said newspaper advertisement may be waived in the event of an emergency, and that's another policy. I don't see that it says it has to be 3 on items 1 through 4. It's in the 300 to 10,000 range. It actually says it should be based on 3. But in those that are over 10,000, it just says a competitive bid process. And I think that was intended by the authors of this who predated me, because a lot of those are unique specialty services whereby there are not always 3 bids available. And the specification process is so important that when you make a bid, that you have to have a full specification. So we have another policy, I lost the number here, I wrote it down. The policy that says that a bid process it's spelled out in the regulations or the rules. We just set up the policy, and then the regulations, I think Mr. Alexander or whoever the director at the time was, set up the way that those policies are enacted. But our policy, I believe, just says that we'll have a bid process. Now, I need some enlightenment on what is the regulation. Then, once we have a bid process under policy 2.806, all we said is we want a competitive bid process. I don't see 3 bids on that.
Well, what you're talking about, one is quotes and one is bids.
Okay.
300 to 10,000 is quotes, and we have a sheet on which at least 3 are placed. Everything above that is we can't go out and beat the bushes and try and bring people forcibly in to make a bid on things of this nature. It is we follow the board policy, and we take. We're hopeful of getting many, but in some cases we get, as you notice here on the other, only 1. So in those circumstances, we are complying with board policy.
So our policy doesn't say 3 bids.
It says whenever possible.
No, that's for 300 to 10,000. This is $24,000.
That's for quotes on 300 to 10,000.
But what I'm reading in lines 1 through 4 does not say 3 bids. It says these bids, T-H-E-S-E, not T-H-R-E-E. And it says these bids shall be solicited by advertisement in the newspaper, which we did, of the general circulation of the district, except that it may be waived in the event of an emergency like the boiler situation. Okay, so we have another policy that addresses emergencies. And then my question is, when a board develops policy, you develop how to enact it. That's what I was told at the board training in Nashville was. So what I'm saying is, we have a process that's written somewhere by which competitive bids are. And from what I understand, it's 30-day announcement in the paper, sealed, and there's a closure. And I don't know all the specifics. Maybe you know more than that. But I believe that we attempt to get 3 as part of that in the rules and regs. Although it's not policy. It's policy if it's 300 to 10,000 according to 6, 7, and 8. Line 6, 7, and 8 of that policy.
It's reasonable and equitable and the
Sure.
way we handle it.
So we do handle it by getting 3 if possible, but we do it through a sealed process that's advertised.
Sure.
Okay. And we followed that. But we only got 1 sealed bid in. Is that correct?
That's
and
what I understand.
JCPenney's had an opportunity
Yes.
to apply for it, and they didn't make the deadline.
So in order to
So
open it back up, as
we have to
Wilson says,
reject
it would
it.
have to be voted down. And the circumstances, if it were to be extended, it would have to be done by the board, and probably if it were extended and they were allowed to get that without voting it down, we would probably be in litigation.
No, sir, they
No.
can't, you can't do that legally. You can't extend it.
So we would be in violation.
Yes, we
Right,
would
we have to
be.
vote it down.
You would
decline the
have
bid.
to reject.
So we could get a
every-
higher bid.
You'd
Now
have to
that
do what
someone
Ms.
knows-
Wilson said, you'd have to
sorry.
reject this,
Yeah.
and then she'd have to go through the whole issuing of the bid process again. So the system would be expending the funds for the
Another bid.
advertising and all of that again.
Okay, and here's my issue. If we reject the bid and reopen it, and there are people out there who see that there's only 1 bid, one of 2 things is going to happen. They're going to see that they're going to know what the bid was. It's no longer sealed, and you lose the potential for competing. You're going to have a bid no lower than what you already have because they know what the lowest bidder is. I don't think you're going to get people bidding lower. In fact, I think a lot of them, maybe the reason they didn't bid is because once they read the specifications, they say, oh, yeah, that means pulleys and taking them down, and that means mechanical work and scaffolding. And so now all of a sudden it's not just curtains. It's now a bigger issue. And so I'm afraid if we vote it down, we may come back with a $30,000 bid and the expenses of that, simply because the company that rebid it may be the only bidder again, and they may bid higher when they see that this open meeting has debated it and nobody else wanted to bid on it, apparently.
Well, when I called the people, they said they had not seen it in the paper. But in either case, the reason, even if they see the specs 9 times out of 10, you know, the bid's gonna remain the same. It's not saying it's gonna be lower or higher, but if we still want to go with this company, whether it was higher or lower, then we could still do so. We still have that option. And it's not saying, and if it's a company, if it's a good company, they're not gonna up their price simply because somebody else is gonna bid and I wanna make it a little higher, but hopefully we're dealing with ethical people to where, and it's showing on our part that we're doing all that we can to obtain the bids like we should. That we're doing the right thing. We're not just.
I feel comfortable that
Or
we
either
have.
somebody call and say, well, I would have bid on that if I'd known it, or, you know, like I said, I read the paper too, but I did not see it in there. Of course,
Well,
I
I
probably
feel like we have met those requirements by advertising it and giving people that do this type of work and look for opportunities and look for publications that have these in them. So I kind of feel like we've done what we're required to do as far as trying to obtain the 3 bids, and if you don't get any response, that's no fault of ours.
I think you have to follow the city charter as well.
Well, I feel like we have.
The city charter defers this
we-
to us. I mean, that the city charter defers all matters of the schools to this board, as I understand it.
But I feel like we followed our own policies.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying,
Make
is we
delivery
followed the
of
policy, and now if we reject it, we will, the only way we can continue to follow this policy is fully reject and restart it at ground zero, but we've already followed our policy, and I feel comfortable that we followed it from what I've heard. I don't see anything in our policy that requires 3. I don't see that we didn't give the opportunity for 3 people to do it. We made every effort to do so that we make for any other bid process issues. And so we've been very consistent in following out board policy 2.806. However, we didn't have 3 bidders. I have a second, kind of a tangential issue, and I feel like that in some of our other policies, we're not really supposed to be acting on behalf of an individual representing the board and having bid processes without full specs. But I appreciate where you're headed, because I think that you've often made it very clear that we need to have 3 bids. I think that the number 3 is what we're kind of focused on, rather than the process, which allows for up to 3 bidders and tries to get 3 bidders, but we've done the process to get them, and we didn't get them. We don't normally call people. That's not part of our routine, and certainly not as an individual, because unless the gavel is down, we're not a board. I'm just an individual. And so to go and ask them to come into the school system and represent that we might give them a job worries me a bit as to what that might extend the risk of our system if they think that they have an opportunity to bid now. So I have concerns about that, and our 1.061 speaks to that we have no legal status on that.
Dr. May, one
yes,
thing
ma'am.
I'd like to make you aware of is that Mrs. Wilson has worked with the current financial manager at the city, but she also worked very closely with Larry Clark, a former member. And when we changed this policy, the amounts were upped so that we were matching what the city is doing as far as the limits.
To be consistent.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
So she has done her due diligence
Yeah,
on that.
The second thing is 1.403 says that we'll have an agenda item at least 7 days. And this beginning part could be avoided if we would follow our own policy and have things here 7 days. If they're on there, they're on there. If we want to extend them, we need to talk about it here. But I guess I don't feel comfortable not following through this process, because I feel comfortable that we have been consistent with our policy. I just don't think we got 3 people bidding back.
One of the reasons, before I received a packet, or any of us received a packet, which was, most of us got it last Thursday afternoon. All right, in looking through it again, I said, I don't know the exact specifications. I said, all I'm seeing here is, auditorium curtains. I didn't see that there was other windows or anything like that. So another thing that needs to be attached is the full specifications. The other item is, with any organization that I have worked with, you know, if you don't have at least 3 bids, they said go back and see if you can have at least 3. It's not saying that you're not going to accept the one you are having, but at least you have a choice that gives you a chance to really look at it thoroughly and make sure that you're getting the very best for your dollar amount. Now, as he stated, the lady that came back, she did not have the specifications. And she couldn't have them because they're not in our book. We didn't have the specifications.
Well, she could because they were advertised 30
Well,
days ago,
it was
45
advertised,
days
and
ago.
they were to call Miss Wilson, I think, and then Miss Wilson would, or either come by and pick them up from Miss Wilson, right? Okay. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen it. I didn't know we had to pick up the specs. This is something I'm saying that we need to make clear that says if you're going to bid, pick up specs or whatever. But also as a board member, if I know that this is going to be bidded, maybe there should be a little note that this is going to be bidded.
Specifications are always up here, and we can come up and look at them. However, we're not supposed to be soliciting bids individually.
Yes.
And so I think if you want to change this policy, 2.806, we need to do that in the proper channels and change the board policy. But the policy as written, I believe that the administration has followed to the T.
Well, I'm not asking for it to be changed. I'm just saying that I feel that we should have, well, yes, changed to the point of asking for at least 3 bids. That's all I'm saying. But again, it's not soliciting. It's not saying you're going to get the job. It's saying, you know, if you're capable of making a bid on it, please do so. It doesn't matter, you know.
Wow, this is
Who
kind of
does
opening
it?
us up to a
Okay.
lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
We
no,
can
I'm
do-
saying when you go
Yeah.
out, okay, if you want to, my gosh, Mr. Vanderhouse, I think you wanted to say something, then we need to vote because we could
Yeah.
be here for days discussing.
I just want to say from an administrative standpoint that I'll just be honest with you, it feels a little bit like that we're being, is a witch hunt almost for us, that for some reason there's an implication that we're not following what we have there. And for the people that work back here every day, that is somewhat of an insult. Anytime we're an open and book case, all people have to do is come and ask for those things. And if they don't, we can't go out and make people do bids. This is a specialty item. That's a reason if you look at every one of our schools where there's a stage curtain company has installed that. In the 2 elementary schools we just completed at Harold McCormick and the one at T.A. Duggar, when it was installed by a stage curtain company. So, again, I guess I'm up here taking up for the administrators who work here every day and do our best. And again, it feels like an attack on us. So.
Well, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry that you're taking it that way. I'm grateful for the work that you do. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're looking at all the channels because we're constantly saying we don't have money, and we know that our money is tight. We all know that because there's a lot of things that we want to do. So I'm just wanting to be a very good steward with the money that we have. And in order to be a good steward, you want to look for the person that can do the very best job for the least amount of money.
One
And
thing that
it's not promising anybody anything. It's just asking you to please give us information, see if we can find something better. And if we can't, then we go with the best one, whether it's a theatrical, stage curtain person or a person that has that ability in our hometown that can do it. So
one thing that
I'm
I would
sorry
remind
it's
you
taken
of
that way.
is that in all the audits that have been presented to this board and in previous years, while not only Ms. Wilson but her predecessors have been in office, never have we had an audit finding saying that we did not follow the state bid process correctly. We have had a clean report on that. And we have done this one no differently than we have any other. The auditors are here reviewing things now, and that has not been pointed out that we have done something in error or illegally. But just a reminder that all these bids that you have voted for in the past have been processed the same way by Ms. Wilson and her staff according to the state guidelines. And we have done them legally and correctly.
Thank you. All right.
one other thing. I'm not saying that they haven't been, I'm just,
I know, we're starting to say the same things over and over again, so, well, let's vote. Item on the floor is to approve awarding of bid number ECSS FY 2013-2014-02 for the purchase of auditorium curtains for T.A. Duggar Junior High School to Kindle Stage Curtains in the amount of $16,020. Ms. Perkins, can you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Armstrong.
She said yes.
Thank you. Ms. Baker.
I'd like to hold up and get another bid, but not, so my answer is no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Isaacs.
Yes.
Dr. May.
Yes.
Ms. Brewer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item is approve issuance of purchase order for the replacement of JCI controls at Harold McCormick Elementary School. Current estimated estimated replacement cost is $30,580, which will be addressed through the energy savings contract currently in place with Train. Reimbursement of monies in the amount of $10,025 through the Energy Efficient Schools Initiative Energy Management / Education Grant will be forthcoming and applied to the cost incurred for this project. Can I get a motion? What am I making a motion for? Approve.
Motion to
Thank you.
approve, yes.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Yes.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
At this point, Ms. Trent, if you'll come forward, please.
I apologize here. Threw some notes together. I was a little blindsided by this last minute, so I'll try to give you the best information I can here. I'd like to start out by explaining where we've where we've got in direction going with Train at our schools, controls, and so forth. Roughly back in right around 2009, 2010, with our energy contract we was talking about, we looked at going with either Train or ESG. We picked Train to help us with to see how we can do energy savings and guide us in the right direction. Because quite frankly, our staff, myself included, we do not have the knowledge that it takes to really put some of these projects together. So we selected Train as their provider, and which up to date they've done an excellent job for us. Well, about two and a half years ago, I took over facilities, and I began looking at what we had in place, and we had Johnson Controls in place at all of our schools, and I'll probably roughly say about 80% of them did not work. Everything from
what was that number?
Probably 80%.
80%?
At least.
Okay, thank you.
And the controls we had were inefficient. We had an old dial-up line. We were not controlling any lights, the boilers, the chillers. I mean, things were just running nonstop, wasting energy. So I tried to start looking, on what we could do. I went to neighboring school systems, talked to different vendors, and Train had a awesome control package. Johnson City Schools, they have it integrated through their entire school system over there. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they don't have thermostats in rooms. They control it all via the computer out of their maintenance department. Tremendous energy savings. So once we looked at everything and we went with that, we began by installing Train controls at the high school. This involved our first core setup, which involved installing the file server, software, controls. We took control of our boilers and control of our chillers, which we have 3 schools right now are what we call 2-pipe systems. They're either on heat or off heat, on air or off air. And what I'm trying to say is generally one time a year we switch over to heat or switch over to air. And a lot of times we'll go through a month or so, and you can ask them in the schools, they're pretty uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's temperature, our weather in spring and fall, you never know what it may be. One thing that we're rolling into this new control package, it is going to give us the ability to, if just like next week, if we have a day that's maybe 73 degrees, maybe 39 at night, we will have the ability to set scheduling to turn the boilers on maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, knock the chill off in the buildings, and then turn around, and because the system, you can't just flip it straight on because it will damage the what they call the barrel in the chiller. So the water has to cool back down from being heated up in the boilers. And at that point, maybe by 10, 11 o'clock, the air will be able to come on by the time the heat of the day. And then so, the kids and teachers hopefully are not 75, 80 degrees in the classrooms in the evening. So and the 3 schools we have that at are the high school, T.A. Duggar, and Harold McCormick. Currently, we have the high school train controls in the high school. We currently have them now at T.A. Duggar, and this is the 3rd school, Harold McCormick. And the TVA started roughly 2 years ago with this energy grant that they came out with, and it is based solely on energy savings. And these projects here that, like we're doing right here, they're custom projects. They will not approve these. These go to a Tech Advisory Council, and they go through this process, and we have to prove that we are going to get substantial energy savings by putting these in, or they won't approve it. So in the past, we've had enough money in the TVA grants where they've paid 50% of it. Unfortunately, it would have paid 50% of this project as well, but all the grant allotment was $10,000. So that's why the numbers are the way they are. So one other thing, as we've rolled these controls into the schools, I'll give you one example. The high school train came in this summer. They put 4 different monitors on 4 big units at the high school. While the building was unoccupied throughout the summer, 3 units ran nonstop, total flatline. One was, they told me, either 85 or 90%. I want you to think of the energy wasted. Nobody's in the building. It's running nonstop. We're rolling all that in. We're doing that, a roll in right now and tying the controls in the auxiliary gym, and it's going to give an energy savings of 1 year. We'll be able to pay back by putting the controls in that auxiliary gym. So and this right here is the focus that I have to push out through our entire school system. My goal is, once we finish this project at Harold McCormick, is to move to east side and west side as well. But Ms. Baker, she gave me these papers here. One's from Johnson Control, and another one is more or less a memo from Norwell. The one paper that I've received here from Johnson Controls has a cost of $17,728. It does not, says proposal does not include computer workstation, server software, LAN connection, and other controls not listed above. Doing some real quick numbers thrown into this, I would say you could probably estimate at about anywhere from 12 to 20,000 of this. And so that puts us right in line with everything else. And this would, switching to this would be about like putting a Chevy motor in a Ford car. I mean, because we'd have 2 totally different setups. We'd have to either scrap what we've got and go back. We've probably got 80,000, maybe 100 invested what we have already. We'd have to backtrack and redo what we've already done and put in place, which is absolutely working great. We'd just totally change direction, and we absolutely would not want to run 2 systems that would not work and talk to each other. Another reason we went with Train in the past as well is our chillers and boilers. Let me back up on the boilers. The controls on the boilers are Train. Our chillers are Train. So what we're putting in is talking to what we've got. It's not just what we've got in place, and what I'm presenting today is not a cookie cutter model. Somebody can't just whip out a Word document and say, this right here is what it's going to cost. These guys have been on site numerous times, going through what we've got, what controls we've got, what lighting controls we will have the capabilities of taking control of. There's a massive amount of work that's went into this. And then, we send it down, we got it approved through TVA. That grant ends at the end of this month, the $10,000. If we elect to not go with this, November 1, that money's not there. It's gone. And what I have been told come November 1, unfortunately, I really hate this, the grant process where they've been giving this money out, they're going to switch to low interest loans. So this will be the last time we'll get just a lump sum of money to spend like that. Another thing about Train, over some of these other companies, that whether we've not used them or whatever, some of the thought process that goes into this, people like Train, they have what they call certified energy managers. These people, they specialize in controls. It's their specialty. They make good money at looking at ways of saving us energy. They're more than just, quite frankly, they're more than a mechanical contractor. They specialize in what they do, and there's a reason why, we go with the company, whether it, be Johnson Controls, whether it's Train. And, when you go with a company like Train, when you go with the controls like Train, you have to rely on Train to put them in. If we elected to go with Johnson Controls, their control system, we would need to have Johnson Controls put those in. But, hiring just anybody to do this, they can't do it. And there's a whole lot that sits down their data center, a file server and everything else, that they have the ability, they upload graphics. There's a lot that goes on the back end that's more than just turning the heater on and off. It's nothing that somebody else could just come in and grab a hold of and take without having a major nightmare and probably trashing what we've got.
I remember in that 2009, 2010, when we were looking at Train or ESG, and we were kind of looking at this as a big picture.
Yes.
As this is a long-term commitment we were making with the goal of energy savings and actually seeing the benefit of doing that. And, when we're replacing, if I'm understanding it, things that aren't working and that aren't energy efficient, we're in the process of slowly getting rid of all those equipment and bringing in things that are much more energy efficient. And the thing that you were talking about the two-pipe system that, you switch heat and on and off. I know that I remember being in schools when, once the calendar hit, it may be cold that morning, but you'd be dying that afternoon because the heat was on. But, around here, I think it's going to get cold next week, but it's been nice up until then. So I just remember when we were looking at Train, we were looking at ways that we could be much more energy efficient, again, being good stewards of our money and trying to make sure that we were being more energy efficient and more green and being more careful with the environment and things. So.
Madam Chairman, may I make a comment? I think the depth of the presentation Mr. Trent has made here makes the argument that the IT system, our people are doing a tremendous job. And I think that it would be beneficial for all board members to hear someday, other than right now, about the history of Johnson Controls as it relates to financially for our system. I think that would be very beneficial. But I can't tell you how pleased we are with the efforts of our IT department as it relates to what Mr. Trent's talked about. So that, and he's also the supervisor of maintenance. God bless him. Anyway, so with that in mind, I just think it'd be important to know.
This agreement, which we weren't here and we're not that familiar with, was a board-approved energy agreement with Train. That the board approved that. We've already done a couple of these projects, you said, at the high school and at T.A. Duggar.
Yes.
And this is the same method and the same procedure that we're doing here that we did then. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay, as far as moving forward. And, we're getting a $30,000 project done for $20,000.
Exactly.
Have we already been approved through the TVA process that we're eligible for this $10,000 grant?
Yes, we have. It's made it all the way through the whole advisory committee, and yes, it has been approved.
So if we approve this, we get the $10,000?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Trent, again, I was going, not I, but going under our rule of the three. And you're saying that the system that we have now, which is basically Johnson Control there.
Yes,
at Howard McCormick.
In our 3 elementary schools, yes.
Okay. And so you're saying that in order, in switching to Train and allowing them to put their materials in, that it's going to be more efficient. Now, again, I did read this. I had, like I said, the spec got smaller as it went through there, so I pulled out my dollar glasses, and I got down on it because I try to be a thorough person. So I didn't ask why you didn't have 3 bids or why it wasn't put out to bid. And I said, you know, we still are supposed to have something to compare it to. It'd been nice still, I understand, to see you were able to explain the difference by having these 3. Whereas I couldn't see the difference in you because all you had was what? 1. I couldn't see the fact that you're telling me that you're saving, what, 85% more.
I'm saying 85% of the controls did not work.
Oh, you're saying that,
Yes.
and that you've already replaced them.
No, that's what we're wanting to do.
Okay,
Yes.
but you're saying they're not working now.
That's correct.
Okay. And in asking for this, I was led to believe that they were still working. I didn't know they were totally not working. And in reading this, to me, it sounded as if you were just upgrading, that they're still working, but you want to go ahead and upgrade. Now, that grant, which is good, and I'm not saying that we couldn't have approved this before your 31st date. I'm saying we wanted time to read and do a comparison, which you've done a pretty good job there. And in order to do that, I said we could have a call meeting and vote on it. But when you don't have all the background information, then she said she was going to run off our agreement. But in our agreement, it didn't say that we were totally going with Train. We said Train was our repair person, from my understanding, but she's going to run it off for me. And I do appreciate the background information.
Ms. Baker, for
And
you,
I don't
something
think
that
that
might
was
help
done.
you is when you get your board packet and you have questions, this is one of the nicest men ever.
Well,
You can call him and he could have gave you this, all the stuff that he just told you, he could have told you, and you wouldn't have had
well,
to.
no, I wouldn't have had the specs here to do the comparison with. And like I said, I didn't see any bid sheets or anything like that.
But
So,
if you call him, he can give you quite a bit of information.
Yeah.
So could Mr. Little.
yeah,
All these people are available to
I
us.
understand, but I still feel we should ask for bids, and then that even makes a stronger case as far as what we're doing. This was not put out for bid.
That's correct.
No, it wasn't.
Right. We're purchasing, not only is this train project, we're purchasing off the, what do we call that? Basically that contract that we signed with them years ago. They are also listed on the TCPN contract.
Yeah.
That we could purchase off that as well, which is a second bid process that's already been taken care of for us. So, I mean, we really have 2 legal avenues that we could go through to make this purchase and, cover us on it. So it's just, I just didn't listen to TCPN on there because I think it was necessary. So.
Well, thank you very much.
I did call them, and that's where I got these they sent me this recommendation of the vendors that could do the same job, because I asked them, because I was just curious as to why we didn't have or put that out to bid.
Thank you, Mr. Tran.
Very much. Okay. So, item on the floor is to approve issuance of purchase order for replacement of JCI controls at Harold McCormick Elementary School. Current estimated replacement cost is $30,580, which will be addressed through the energy savings contract currently in place with Train. Reimbursement of monies in the amount of $10,025 through the Energy Efficient Schools Initiative Energy Management Education Grant will be forthcoming and applied to the cost incurred for this project. Mrs. Perkins, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Armstrong?
This is really hard for me because I had people calling me and talking to me about this particular issue. And I had a problem, as they did, that it wasn't put out to bid, so I must vote no. I'm
Thank
sorry.
Ms. Baker?
Well, since he has explained it, I do understand why he's doing it. But I still feel we should have put it out to bid, and we should, even though more likely we would go with this, I still feel we should hold off and have a call meeting and then decide, because it was not put out to bid.
So what's your vote?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Isaacs?
I feel comfortable that this has been done before. This isn't new to us. And as Ms. Perkins stated earlier, we have auditors that review our financials and bid processes every year. And to my knowledge, there's not a red flag in the last procedural times that we've done this case. I'm going to vote yes.
Dr. May?
Ms.
long as we're going to editorialize, I will too. I think we followed the bid process to the T according to 2.806. I think that we have two methods here, that this one is correct. One is the agreement that was previously signed, previously voted in a legal decision of this board, and that we are to uphold that decision. I don't think that we have not followed a bid process for those who may have called and were concerned. Second thing is, I do not see, again, that there is a necessity to have 3 bids, although I think that is our general intent. It's not spelled out. So I'm very comfortable saying that this is the best thing for the system. It's the most financially responsible, and my vote is yes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brewer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is approved contract between Haley Greenlee BS and Elizabethton City Schools for consulting services to maintain the websites for the Coordinated School Health Initiative and the health services component for students, faculty, staff, and parents between October 17, 2013 and June 30, 2014 at a rate of $200 per month. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilder, would you come forward? This name should be familiar because we have employed her before, and she's the spouse of one of our 2 students that we had in that family.
Yes, Haley was an intern here for an entire semester while she was at ETSU's College of Public Health. And then after she graduated the following school year, that's when she began working on our website. So she has a bachelor's degree in community health promotion, and I took her everywhere with me that semester. So she's well-versed in coordinated school health. And coordinated school health is funded from the state year by year, and so that's why we renew this every year.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ms. Wilder.
Item on the floor is to approve contract between Haley Greenlee BS and Elizabethton City Schools for consulting services to maintain the websites for the Coordinated School Health Initiative and the health services component for students, faculty, staff, and parents between October 17, 2013, June 30, 2014 at a rate of $200 per month. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is approve issuance of purchase order to MXN Corp. to purchase necessary items to be implemented and utilized for PARCC testing. One-time state funds will be utilized in the purchase of these items in the amount of $174,019.99. This purchase order will be utilizing the Tennessee contract of Trenton Special Schools District for the bid process and is a single source supplier. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Trent, come back again. You did such a good job before. We'll let you attack this one as well.
What we've got here, we've been looking at, with the park testing guidelines and what is going to be required for us to do online testing. We've been looking at various different ways that we could try to do this. So early on, basically, what they've asked us is to be able to test in our elementary schools and T.A. Duggar is to start out by being able to test one full grade level online at one time. Now, you know, if you kind of look at the setups we have in our schools right now as far as the lack of computer labs, you know, we have computers here and there, but as far as to get a group of students together to do online testing at one time, we don't have it. And so we've looked at laptop labs, iPad labs, and nothing really fits our needs, especially with some of the guidelines that are with PARC. We have to lock down browsers. They can't have the ability to put in jump drives. There's just a lot of requirements that we've got to meet. Well, MXN Company, they started this roughly about a year or so ago, and they seen a lot of the complaints from the IT departments of the tablets and the iPads. And in short, what IT departments are doing, they're getting overwhelmed by putting iPads out, because with our Dell computers, we have software that we put and we lock down the core components of the software. So what I'm saying by doing that is if they load a virus on it, if they delete the printer, if they delete software that's essential to making that computer operate, as soon as it's shut off and turn it back on, it's fixed. It's just like we put a brand new load on it. And we have that across the district. So, and we've had that for a while and things run great. Well, iPads, Apple does not allow you to control their core software that way. And so what we're getting into is we've rolled these out in the classroom, kids are locking them, they're deleting things off of them, and it's turning into a management nightmare. This company seen what was coming down the pipe, and fortunately, they designed this from the ground up. That's why it's a sole source. They went to China and got basically an Android tablet. You know, it looks just like one of the Samsung Galaxies. And they've designed an Android operating system on it that's custom to them. Some of the special things about this tablet is it's really designed with the concept of sending it home with the kids each night. And if you take the iPad or this tablet out of the school system and you go to McDonald's, your home, or wherever, and you use the internet or whatever ability we give you to operate on it, it's going to authenticate back through our network. It's going to run through the same filter. It's going to be just like you're sitting in this room right now. If they decide, okay, we're going to start stealing these, we shut it down on the back end. That device is bricked. They can't hard set it. They can't reload it. They take it to the pawn shop. They've got a paperweight. So, I mean, they have really thought about a lot of things when they've come to designing this unit. And the other really cool thing about it, we're going to roll these out. We're going to use them as our part testing devices, but we're hoping to use these day in and day out and expand this as money, allows us to, because we'll be able to put these out in the classroom, and a teacher, they can collaborate back and forth with their students. They can push whatever content right there. They can push it right to them, pull it out, give them access to whatever. If they want them to have internet access, they can. If they only want them to go see one website, they can. It's really neat. And what we're proposing here today is basically 440 tablets, and that includes them coming in, doing a core install that we're going to be housed down at our data center that's going to control all these. As we roll out through this and we roll these out, we're going to the other aspect of this is the wireless devices. As the HP access points that we have on this, we're going to, at the high school, we have an enterprise wireless solution. It's not room 14 wireless over here or room 28 wireless here. It's one big wireless blanket that we have over the high school. This right here is going to allow us to do that in each school. We'll put one code in, your device, and when you go to east side, your device will work. If you go to west side, it'll work. You go to the high school, it'll work. And we've tried various different tests. We've walked from one end of the high school to the other, streaming Netflix. The movie never stops. It just keeps right on going. So, and the other big thing that while we're looking at this, the price of these devices are half the price of an iPad, and that's including a hardwired keyboard. We've looked when the kids, one of my concerns is when they start doing the part testing, if they've got to do some type of constructed response and you start typing on the pad itself, I just don't know how well that'll go. And I also don't know, we don't want to go with a wireless type keyboard, whether the battery may fail. In a high stakes test, you want to take the chance of this Bluetooth device grabbing that one. These are going to have hardwired keyboards built into the case as well. That's really about all I know to explain to you on it.
May I say something about this? If you can see what's happening with iPads in California, they were ahead of the game, supposedly. They bought all children iPads, and they were able. Our children in this country are very bright, and they were bypassing, causing the problems. This is a very complex, technical thing that Mr. Trent and his people, Mr. Pless and Ms. Taylor and Ms. Hannah Wilson are all working in concert on this to make this happen. This is big. When you're dealing with a junior high that was built in 40 and 41. You're talking about infrastructure and things of this nature too. So they're ahead of the game on that. This mass testing is in fact tough, and I'm so thankful that we have people who are competent. Mr. Day is back there, Mr. Lancaster, and Mr. Brewer do a tremendous job. And all you have to do is talk to them about these things, and they make them happen. And I'm amazed with that. You've seen a lot of things about bring your own device and things of this nature, but they're ahead of the pitch on this as far as we're concerned. And we are so thankful for what you're doing.
One thing I want to make clear is the HP wireless access points and devices. That is what is on the Trenton Special Schools District, and the tablets themselves, that is a sole source, one-of-a-kind deal. So nobody else is doing that.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm, it is.
Now, are there other schools that are...
Yes. One other thing I want to say is we got grant money from the state. We've got $153,000 was given to us to build out the network and for testing devices. So that's where $153,000 is coming. ESP, the grant they have, they are spending $17,000, and then the remaining, it's about $3,000 or $4,000 is coming out some E-rate money I have.
What was the grant money from the state, if you don't mind?
It's a few dollars under 153 days. It's like 152,900 and something.
Are there any other systems that have used this?
This is brand new. They Wilson County, I believe, just approved. They're going to roll it out. Wilson County went through a beta test on this, and they liked it so well that they're rolling a whole bunch out themselves. They've been bringing it up to us probably 2 or 3 times over the course of the last 6 months, just showing us the evolution of the product and where they're at, and they've really got a nice product built. It's going to meet our needs. And the other big thing that I want to elaborate on this, when we were looking at doing the testing on this, when you're talking about getting that many kids together to test, we were first looking at trying to convert our gymnasiums or our cafeterias into testing centers. And I mean, so you're either going to displace your gym class, you're going to be scrambling to set up something in the cafeteria, not counting, the manpower it's going to take, maintenance, IT, and custodians and everything else. But by integrating all this together with their wireless solution, we should be able to do all of our testing in the classroom. We pop these devices out, the footprint that it's going to be, they should be able to set it there, flip it open, and have at it. 6-hour battery, 6+ hour battery life supposed to be on these.
Very smart company.
Have any of the teachers been involved with this project, and any of the educators that are currently testing right now?
Not with us. They have not seen it yet.
Okay, but you did say another system had used this and was very pleased. Is it just one that has used them? And
Yes. And I think I said Wilson County. It was Hamilton County.
Hampton. Okay.
Hamilton County.
Chattanooga area?
Yes.
Yeah, there are 20,000 kids, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't the full district. They beta tested this at the school.
Okay.
Yes.
So they had it, at least a year or more?
No, it's not. It wasn't
It's
a
not
full
even?
year. It was probably, don't hold me to this, I'm going to guess probably, a semester is what I'm guessing, because just what they used to beta test to get the bugs out of it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trent.
One other thing, did you talk to any of the instructors that's actually going to be using this to
I've talked
get input to how they felt and let them get excited about it? Or
Well, I've only mentioned in the principals meeting, myself, Mr. Van Huss, Dr. Gardenauer, Mr. Hutchins. We looked at this device, and the part testing, it's going to be online, basically using the internet browser, and the way we're going to link in. So we've got to come up with some device that can do that. As far as being able to use it and be able to test, whether you're sitting on a laptop using Internet Explorer, whether you're using an iPad, using Safari, or this device, it's really all going to work the same way, but this device is going to give us the ability to meet the requirements. It's going to give us the ability to lock it down like we need to, and the teachers are going to be able to utilize this throughout the year. So I can't imagine, especially the teachers that are really tech savvy, they're going to love this. They're going to really want to get their hands on it.
Anything else? All right. Item on the floor is to approve issuance of purchase order to MXN Corp. to purchase necessary items to be implemented and utilized for park testing. One-time state funds will be utilized in the purchase of these items in the amount of $174,019.99. This purchase order will be utilizing the Tennessee Contract of Trade Special Schools District for the bid process and is a single source supplier. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. And the last one, I don't know how we're going to approve it since we have nothing to recommend, but we'll.
I'd just like to make recall the capital project. We have met twice, and they have been very productive.
About this? I know. Since there's nothing that we can approve, do we just want to discuss it, or because we had to keep it on there? I tried to take it off, and we had to keep it on there. Do we read the item as listed and then go with it? Yeah, we'll vote it down.
Can I make a motion that we postpone this
You can.
agenda and then say
You can postpone it to another meeting.
postpone it to another meeting?
That would be wonderful. Any?
I'll make that in form of a
I'll second that.
Got a
Postpone to the
motion
next
and a
meeting.
second. Thank you.
And if you want to discuss it just briefly, just that the committee has met twice. We've had some very productive meetings, a lot of questions, a lot of answers. Still have some questions, and we're still getting, the purpose of the committee was to gather information to make a recommendation to the full board, and we're still gathering that information. But I would like to respond to Ms. Armstrong as far as the Mr. Smith gentleman. I'm sure if and when we get to that point, he will have an opportunity to bid just like any other bidder on this project. So, it's not like we're excluding anyone. It's just I don't know what the correspondence has been with but I'm sure if and when we get to that point with these projects, he'll have every opportunity to bid just like anyone else. So hopefully we're going to meet on the 28th and get some more information, and then we'll move forward from that point forward. So.
Okay, so we have to. What am I voting on? I'm so confused.
The motion to postpone.
All right. Item on the floor is to postpone item number 11, which is approved capital project committee recommendation. We've had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Dr. May has made us aware that our next scheduled board meeting, which was supposed to be the 21st, he is going to be on call, and we would like to change the date, a couple of dates. One of them is the 14th, but that city council meeting. Dr. May can also meet on the Monday the 18th. Anybody have a date that's better for them, either the 14th or the 18th? Both are fine with me.
I'd like to be able to attend the city council meeting.
So
What about the 18th? Is that
Monday the 18th, would that work to have our November meeting?
As far as I know.
Ms. Baker, can the 18th work for you?
Yeah.
Ms. Armstrong?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to be, all right, so the next regularly scheduled board meeting will be Monday, November 18th at 6:30 in the McPherson boardroom. For our policy revision, we're going to be looking through the section 4.100 through 4.8. So if you see anything in the policies that you want to discuss, please let us know. I think that's it. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.